The vision of Void came from one thing that I knew how to do well. I knew how to talk, right? I knew how to express myself. I remember one particular time, this white social worker who just loved me. Me and him have a great relationship. He'd always used to come down to my groups, and he would be like, baby doll, snapping his fingers, Barry, I love you, Mr. Accius, and he would just be hyping me up, and he would just be mesmerized how I could convey the emotions and really be persuasive to the audience of unruly kids in this group home we both worked at, because he wasn't able to make a connection the way I was able to make a connection. And he just always felt it was just such a gift. And I was like, well, I know I have the gift of gab, but I related so much to who these young men were going to be or what they were trying to do. So that connection always gave me, I felt, the upper hand with other staff. He would just tell me, you need to do your own thing. You just would hype me up, say, man, you're a great speaker. You talk to these young people, they need to hear your message. Sometimes it only takes an individual to see greatness in you. And out of the blue, here's this white guy, right, that me and him were really good friends, that saw something in me that I really didn't see in myself. I want to change my life first before I try to change anyone else's life. It always stuck in my head. So when I now speak life into my young people, I always remember the wise wisdom of someone else. When I didn't believe it was possible, someone believed in me. My background in education, I went to like 5 different high schools. I think, unfortunately, the start of my education was mirrored by a lot of distrust. I felt that I didn't have the learning capacity coming into school at the rate of other kids. So I feel like I was always one track behind. And then me at that particular time also learning 2 different languages. I'm Haitian, right? So all my family members are Haitian. So learning that dialect to try to learn the English dialect, I remember my father telling me that they wanted me to stop learning my home language because they said it was messing me up. So I never necessarily was an individual that took school seriously. School was always a social platform for me, a getaway, right? Hanging out with friends, learning more about myself, playing sports, getting in trouble, No one was negligent. I had tutors, I had all that, but just something didn't click. Something never clicked with me. Later down the line, I think I helped self-educate myself more. The trials and tribulations of life kind of prepared me and got me grounded, so to speak. I took education a lot more seriously when I started leaning into looking and studying and researching and paying attention. And then I started learning my learning patterns. I wasn't the individual that was going to just get it at the first time. I may have to reread it, may have to ask a question, but the beautiful part about it, I becoming the kid that challenged things in the classroom. School was a tough travel for me, but the social patterns, I got an A+. I was always popular. I always had a knack and a keenness, a coolness, a charisma. I was always a showboat, and I had guys and gals that I hung out with that were like the same. So it was, it was a fun time, I could say. But would I have rather, if I could go back in time, would I nerd it up a little bit more? 100%. I would have probably been more of a nerd, probably spent more time with my teacher saying, hey, I don't understand this. Probably maybe kept the girlfriend that really understood stuff and stuck with her and just wasn't a wild, caged animal. And I think the reason why I was so caged, because my upbringing was so regimented. It was so, you can't do that. And that's the unfortunate part about having immigrant parents coming from another country, transitioning themselves and learning the different laws, the American ways. It's difficult. What they tend to see might be bad for me. I tend to see that it's cool. In a transition from coming to New York, going to San Francisco, and then moving into Marin, it was a whole different demographic. You know, that
completely different world.
Oh, it was a whole different world. But it was a very diverse world when I was living in Marin County. So I had I felt it was a melting pot at the time. You know, you talk about the late 80s, early 90s, you know, where I was around black kids, Hispanic kids, Asian kids, white kids. So I had a mixture of everybody. Rich suburban white kids from poor white kids to some well-off, you know, African-American kids to some, all right, in the trenches, African-American kids. I just had a great balance of young people. I wouldn't change it for the world. The only thing I would change is I think that I would have done less time running away from my academic insufficiencies and owning up to some of the things that I was going through, not feeling ashamed of like, well, I don't understand this. And I probably would have been a little bit better at processing what was going on instead of running from it. Because eventually when I started going to college, I had to deal with it all face to face, right? Like, all right, the challenge is here. A black counselor came up to me and said, I need you to be a leader and rally up the troops because the institutional racism in the school and the race matters in the school. And he had motivated me, hyped me up. He's like, I watch you in the lunchroom and it's almost like you're having these sessions, and there's sessions about what? And it was almost like challenging me to make my speech about something important and impactful. So just don't go over there clowning around, making jokes. Uplift your students, empower your students. So I got on my Malcolm X-ish. I was like, all right, let's go. Some of those things that you go through in life, you hold them. You never forget them, you know. There's twice I could have sued the school district because of racial practices. And this was the second time. And again, I had nobody to advocate. So my advocacy comes from those moments when I was young that I remind myself, and I remember when you didn't have someone to be a voice for you. There's not a laser focus on understanding the black child experience. You know, it's different. You know, it just is. I mean, you know, you try to treat all children the same, but it's just different. Our learning methods are different. Our culture is different, and we have to accept that. I don't think that we've accepted that. When you look at us here, especially in Sacramento, you know, our graduation rates are the lowest. Our suspension rates are the highest. That speaks volumes to them being more worried about getting rid of what they consider a problem than trying to fix it, care about it, love on it, and build it back up. But all through my years of education, it was mirrored with disappointment, with lies, with targeting, and not them seeing this bright star, this jewel. I know some of my teachers or some of the individuals, there's probably one teacher, was my first grade teacher, that probably really saw something in me, you know. And I guarantee you, for those who are still alive, they see me and they're just like, that's who I knew he could be. You know, because it was always there, but that's the problem. We don't take enough time to unwrap the package. We just don't take that time. We just, cause like, if it ain't, you know, if it ain't fixed, let's just let it go, you know? And I wasn't gonna be that. I was a little bit more perplexed. And, you know, I'm happy that I could say that creating those obstacles turned into great opportunities. And that's one of our models, one of our slogans is creating obstacles into opportunities. Because I challenge my young people. I tell them, like, create this obstacle into an opportunity. With this obstacle that you see right now, what opportunity you can see from it? And it's hard sometimes to see it, but it's so many opportunities when you're looked upon or frowned upon or told you'll never be anything. When all of this stuff is falling on your lap. When you're feeling all the walls are closing in, it's like some of the best times and best moments to show your greatness. The birth of this was always on the come up. I just didn't know when it was gonna come. So when I started it, I just kind of felt like, oh, I had ideas of what I wanted it to look like, but I never imagined that, one, I'd have kids that would continue to be with me. Two, that I would be so influential to some of these lives and to the community. And three, that I would really be an individual that was a major catalyst to cultivating some of these beautiful, bright minds, young men and young women, and then watching their maturation through the process. So watching them go from this age to this age to this age and continue seeing the climb. Not every story is one of success. There are plenty of pitfalls, but my life was full with pitfalls as well. But understanding that we helped set foundation, where I was lost, what brought me back was my father set up what? Foundation. I was a kid that was on the pathway to prison or dead at an early age, and that was a prediction. One of my teachers, average thing that we hear, black male, acting up, you're going to be dead or in jail by the time you're 18 or 20. That's motivation. Where I'm looking at them, by the time at 18 and 20, you could be doing this great thing. But if you continue to choose this other life, you know the results. You know what I mean? So we're just not going to say the negative. We're going to uplift with the positivity. So I just feel like none of this stuff was just thought out. I just went with what felt right. I just knew that I wanted to be a stationary figure of stability, of realness, of being authentic. And as I say, I want to be a real model, not a role model. A role model plays roles. You don't know what you're really getting. A real model, you see the flaws and you see the humanness of this individual. And that's me. I don't come with the perfect plan. I come with a plan that might be all over the place. And I don't come with a perfect story. And I don't expect my kids to be perfect. And I don't align them to say, you, don't do this. I don't tell them anything. I barely say that I give them advice. I just give them information. I just say, hey, you might want to apply this. I don't want to call it advice because you're going to have to make up your own mind. But what I know I've done is I've got kids on airplanes that they never would have went on airplanes. I've got kids in states that they would have probably never went to states. I got kids to think and value education where I never valued education. One young man, his name is Javon Bowie, beautiful kid. I remember when his mother brought me the brothers. He had a brother, they both came to one of my programs. And the mother said, Barry, I need you to help me save my sons. And I'm like, that's a tall task. I'm not Superman, right? And these kids came in, they're like, oh man, what are we doing here? And those young men became my nephew sons, as I like to call a lot of my young people. I treat them like family, so I use terms like you're my family. So I got a call from Javon, who just had a baby, just graduated a couple years ago from college, and now he's an actual teacher. These are the stories that just be like, yes, because he didn't care nothing about school. I took him to his first college tour, got him on campus in San Diego. He's like, I'm going to college, Unc. I said, okay, guy. I said, all right, nephew. And now he's living in Atlanta, you know, taking care of his baby and his girlfriend and his son, you know. And he's told me, guess what? I said, what? I'm a science teacher. I said, you got to be kidding me. He's like, nah, man, I'm a science teacher now. Those type of things, when you're watching where these kids come from and how you're building them up, and his brother is a producer, a music producer, where the mother is saying, the mother who's a great friend of mine, saying, I need you to help me save my sons. And that's a big ask. How much weight do you have to hold with that? But to be able to watch it, to be able to see that these young men who were definitely influenced by the gang culture here in Sacramento, friends involved, you know, continue to reach for greater heights and to decide this is what I want to do with my life, these are the things that allows me or motivates me to keep going, to keep doing what I'm doing, and says, thank you for whoever was looking out for me. Thank you for my father who set up the foundation. So when I left and ran away from it, I knew that it was there and I understood how to conduct myself. I've seen a man be a man. I just have to apply it. And that's what I just help apply for my young people.